Well, fast forward to modern day, they were putting in this restaurant. And they decided at first that they weren't going to actually use those fireplaces. They were just going to use them for looks. And to save on energy, they didn't want all the heat to go up the chimney, they blocked off the chimneys. Now, the next morning they come in and the smoke alarms are all going off. They can't smell any smoke, they can't see any flames anywhere. The fire department came in and they looked all over, they couldn't find anything wrong, and then it just stopped on its own. The next day they come in, it's going off again. They still can't smell any smoke or see any flames. The fire department came in, they checked all the smoke detectors, they couldn't find anything wrong with those, and then it just stopped again. The third day, the fire department is getting angry. They said, okay, obviously you guys screwed something up. What was the last thing you did before all this started? And they said, well, we blocked off the chimneys. We didn't want to waste the energy. And they said, well, don't do that, unblock them. And they did. And it never happened again. So what they think is that the Reverend Dobbin is still up there trying to keep the place warm for his kids, and apparently ghost smoke will set off a smoke alarm, I guess. Now, have any of you people eaten here yet?
No.
Okay, what the hell, really? Half an hour, that's nothing. That's really good, wow. Well, anyway, if you guys, they're the best, watch you guys right behind you there. Now, anyway, they have the best French Indian soup you'll ever have in your entire life, I gotta tell you. Now, anyway, when you go in there, you're going to notice that the waiters and waitresses all dress up in colonial clothing. It's going along with that full 1776 thing. Well, people will be out here and they will look up and they will see a little girl looking out of that central window up there, also dressed in colonial clothing. Now that's news to the people inside there. There are tables pushed up against each of those windows. They don't see anything inside, it's just people outside looking in. And I mean, I've seen pictures of her. She got a little nightcap, a little shirt on. And she is so real that people have actually gone in and they said, hey, it's great you guys all dress up. Where's that cute little girl? Well, there is no cute little girl. They actually think it's the Reverend Dobbin's daughter. Now, have you guys been out on the battlefield yet?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, you know where Little Round Top is, Devil's Den and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter if you haven't been out there yet, because you know what? You're actually soaking in the battlefield right now. On the first day of the battle, the Confederates chased the Union right through the center of the town. There's places down on Baltimore Street where the Confederates were on one side, the Union were on the other, and they were shooting at each other back and forth. If you want to see a good example of the fighting down there, go down to the Farnsworth house, look at the side of the wall. There's 158 bullet holes in the side of that wall from the battle. The front line of the battle was basically where that gas station is down there. Now, this place being a garrison house, its proximity to the fighting, water in the basement, made it a perfect place to put a field hospital, and they did. Now, after the battle was over, these 4 windows were broken out. In front of each of those windows were piles of arms and legs, because they were doing a lot of operating and amputating in there. And the reason for that was the bullet they used to use. It was called a mini ball. It was neither mini nor a ball. It was actually a 58 caliber soft lead slug that had a horrible tendency of spreading out when it hit you. If it hit flesh, it would get to the size of a quarter and it would gouge out a big hunk of meat. If it hit bone, it would get to the size of a 50-cent piece, and it would shatter any bone that it hit.
Wow.
So if you get hit in the arm and it hits the bone, forget it. You're going to lose that limb. Now you're standing inside there with a freshly cut off arm in your hand. What are you going to do with it? Can't drop it on the floor, right? People will trip on it. It doesn't match any of the furniture in there. It clashes with everything. So you got to get rid of it. So you walk to the window and you throw it out. Well, eventually they pile up, right? You throw it out, it falls right back at your feet. So you pick it up and you go to the next window, the next and the next. They said all 4 of those had piles of arms and legs out in front. Now that door right there, that is the original door. Yay!
Woo!
That is the original door. And after the battle was over, that door was lying on the floor of the entryway covered with blood. The reason for that is because that door was used as the operating table. So all the arms and legs that I just told you about were all cut off on that door.
Wow.
Now, when the owner came back and saw his house, he was pretty upset. I mean, look what they did to his house, right? I mean, the door's laying there. I mean, it looked like it was, it looked like it worked just fine. It was just bloody. So he hung it back up and he painted it red. And that's why it's painted red to this day. All right, guys, now this next part is my one guaranteed kind of paranormally thing on the tour. If you get your cell phones, this will be the time to have them out because you are going to get something.
No pressure.
But I got to have this kind of set up a little bit, all right?
No pressure.
No, there's a lot of pressure. All right, guys, kind of slide over here. I'm going to kind of run through here.
I want to see it work.
All right, you ready? All right. When they built this place in 1776, they did not know that 7 years later, Abraham Lincoln was going to be going right down the street behind us to go up and do the Gettysburg Address. They also didn't know they were going to be putting in these street lights because it's 1776 and they didn't have electricity back then unless you're Ben Franklin. But if you put all of that together and you look up there on that balcony right above that window, who do you see in the shadow?
Abraham Lincoln's face. Abraham Lincoln's face.
Isn't that awesome?
That's cool. I remember seeing this.
Now that is formed by that light coming down, hitting the edge of those rocks and casting that shadow. They have done nothing to augment that. When they first turned that light on for the first time, they're all saying the same thing you guys are. Oh my God, Abraham Lincoln. And then they go, we're not moving that light for nothing, right? That's tourist gold. Now, every time I bring people down here and show them it, they all say the same thing. Oh my God, Abraham Lincoln, except for one time. I come out here and I went, and who do you see? And the person went, some guy with a beard. And I looked up and there was a guy looking out of the window with a beard. No, above that. He goes, oh my God, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, it's really cool. Now that is a really neat coincidence. Now another coincidence is that hedge, the tree, the house, none of that was here during the Gettysburg Address. Up there where he is giving the speeches, all kinds of dignitaries, invited guests, military. A lot of the locals couldn't actually get up there to get a good seat. So some of the locals actually stood on that balcony to watch Abraham Lincoln go by.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool that the place where people are actually watching Abe Lincoln apparently had Abe Lincoln behind him the entire time. And they just didn't know it. I know, I love this thing. I geek out every time I see it.
And there's not only one, but there's two right there.
On the bottom.
On the bottom?
On the bottom, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of his mouth's cut off, but Abe is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That
You
is
can even
pretty
see his
cool.
freaking tie.
Yep.
You can. Oh my God. That's so cool. That is so cool.
That was really good.
I mean, it's not really paranormal, it's just kind of.
That French onion soup, I tried it. It was an hour and a half wait.
Huh?
We wouldn't have got in until 8:30.
Enjoy mine.
Yeah, what the heck?
Great question. You're not trying. No, I know.
Last time, this is where I got all those orbs. Uncle Eric.
Get some more.
I'm filming this time, dude. I'm filming. This is going to be uploaded on YouTube as soon as I get home.
I'll show you guys the photos I got from Charles. It's crazy. I had some weird photos. Are you a ghost person?
Yeah.
Oh, do you watch
Very
other
much.
paranormal
Yes.
shows?
Yes.
Like Kindred Spirits and Ghost Adventures? Like
I'm more Ghost Adventures and Destination Fear
Oh, yeah, okay.
than anything.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm filming on YouTube right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
My husband and I made him go to Charleston and I did like
Did you go
shoot-
to the Charleston jail?
Yes.
Did you have anything happen?
Well, I didn't go to the old jail. I went to the deportation. The one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, French onion soup deal, you love it. All right, guys, move up, you can come up. All right, guys, I know it's just an intersection. What's the big deal? Well, there's kind of a cool story associated with this intersection. Now, remember that story of my ancestor that I told you about?
Yeah.
That story takes place right here. Now, the 20th Main is lined up right there. Colonel Chamberlain is in front, and he doesn't know which way to go. There's nobody there directing traffic. Now, if he would have went straight, he would have ended up in the middle of where Pickett's Charge was. Off to the left, eventually he's going to get up to where Little Round Top is. But he doesn't know where to go. He's from Maine. He's never been here before. Now, at that point, my ancestor says in that manuscript that they saw a man riding down that hill, riding on a white horse. And the guy is dressed in a Revolutionary War uniform. Now, anyway, There was no graveyards there at the time, just by the way. And my ancestor at that point saying, hey, I mean, you know, it's obviously just some guy wearing his grandfather's old uniform and wanting to play army, and that's not too strange. On the first day of the battle, there was a War of 1812 veteran, 70-year-old John Burns, and he gets up there on Seminary Ridge, and he's wearing a white top hat, a bright blue swallowtail coat with big gold buttons, and a bright yellow vest. And he shot up a bunch of Rebs, got wounded himself 3 times, and he became a big town hero. So the idea of some guy, you know, wearing an old uniform and playing army to defend the town is not as weird as you think. Now the guy comes down in front of Chamberlain. He looks him over. He looks over the 20th Maine. And then he pulls his sword out and he points up in that direction. Now Chamberlain goes, well, I guess he knows as well as anybody else. We'll follow him. Well, anyway, they're going up for a little while and then they soon lose track of him, but they met up with other Union units. Now, the next thing you know, they are on Little Round Top. Now, if you guys have seen the movie Gettysburg,
Yes.
Please see the movie Gettysburg. It was shot right here. Yeah, they have that big climactic scene up there on Little Round Top. The 20th Maine has been placed on the extreme left of the entire Union line. And they're ordered to stay there and not move no matter what, because they know that the Rebs are going to try to flank around that line. If they are able to accomplish that, they may have changed the entire outcome of the battle. And the Rebs knew this too, because they sent one of their best units, the 15th Alabama, to go up and do it. And those boys bragged that they had never been whipped before. Well, the 15th Alabama comes charging up the hill. Colonel Chamberlain, they push them all back. They charge again, they get forced back again. They do it several more times, and then the 20th Maine has run out of ammunition. But they can't go anywhere, right? So at that point, Colonel Chamberlain orders them to fix bayonets. I love that scene, I cry every time I see it. And as they start charging up the hill again, Colonel Chamberlain orders a charge down the hill. And as they step off, the guy is back. The horse vaults over the men, going down the hill, sword out, heading right for the Alabama line. And as soon as he hits it, he disappears into the smoke and the chaos of battle. Now at this point, my ancestor's going, okay, this can't be some guy wearing his grandfather's old uniform. This has got to be a ghost. And obviously, since he's wearing a Revolutionary War uniform, it has to be the ghost of George Washington himself, who has come back to lead them in the battle. I've got no idea if it was actually George Washington or not, but that's what he wrote, so that's what I'm going with. Now, when I first came here to Gettysburg, I thought I had this great new ghost story. I had documentation from an eyewitness. And I get here and it's already on the tour. Apparently, it's a very well-known story. In fact, after the war was over, somebody actually asked Chamberlain about him. Now, anyway, he goes, you know, I mean, I didn't see the guy on the hill. I guess he was pretty busy at the moment. But he said, I don't know what happens after death. But I do know that something happened on that hill that inspired my men. And I am not going to question it. So obviously he believed his men that they had seen that. Now, it's pretty cool. I mean, I've seen that. You know, I've read that thing my entire life, and now I get to do it every night. I certainly didn't expect that. Now, there are other versions of that. I was going on Google, and it turns out one of the versions said that George Washington pulled out a flaming sword.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, okay, my ancestor didn't mention that. I think he probably would have. Anyway.
I've heard that
If you
story.
ever get the chance, go to Hillview Manor.
Where?
Hillview Manor. Oh, Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Oh. Oh, I've seen that
just
on
there.
like Portals to Hell or something.
Yeah.
You just did one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just saw it. It's like green
Yeah, it is.
in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
right outside of Pittsburgh.
Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. Well, on this tour, yeah, I'll show you something. I'll tell you something we had shot earlier on the tour. When we get to that location. Ooh.
I'm so impressed.
I know. There's a lot of compensating going on in town.
I hate loud pipes and loud bikes.
All right, is anybody staying in this fine establishment right here? Okay, I didn't ask once. It didn't go well. Okay, anyway. Now, if you look down there, you see room 103, 104, and then room 105. And in room 105 and 105 only, there is a ghost. And people will be in there sleeping, and they will wake up in the middle of the night, and they will see a Confederate soldier looming over the bed at them. They will have their blankets ripped off of them. They'll say somebody is playing with their feet. I don't know why a Reb would be into playing with your feet. And then they also say the little soaps in the bathroom will get whipped around the room at them. Now, obviously, this building was not here during the battle, so what's going on? it's not necessarily the building that's haunted, it's the location.
The grounds.
Yeah, and I guess something must have happened underneath room 104, 105. Now, it turns out if you guys are lucky enough to see an apparition while you're in town here, it is almost always going to be a Confederate. Now, why would that be? There were a lot of dead Yankees here too, right?
Yeah.
Well, after the battle, out on the battlefield proper, the military took care of burying everybody out there. In town, it was the responsibility of the townspeople to do it. Now, there are bodies everywhere out here, Union and Confederate. But the Union, they won the battle. They hold the field. They're walking around town after the battle. If they happen to stumble on a dead Union soldier laying there, they'd walk up to him. They'd turn him over. They probably knew him, or they knew someone who did. And they went, "Oh my God, Bob is dead. What are we going to do about Bob?" Well, they went, "Well, we'll pick him up, clean him up, throw him in a box, bring him down the train station, and ship him home. Or we'll put him up in that graveyard we're going to put up there and give him a nice fancy burial." They had all of the Union soldiers cleaned up by July 7th. Now, the Confederates, nobody knew them, nobody cared. Quite frankly, everybody in town blamed them for everything that happened here. If you woke up after the battle and there's a dead Confederate on your lawn, you're probably just going to drag him over to your garden, dig a shallow hole, dump him in unceremoniously, and then dance on his grave because you're mad at him. But that's not going to help. There's way too many of them out here. And remember, it is July. It is hot.
Oh, yeah.
They said it was one of the hottest Julys on record, and it rained really hard on the 4th of July. These Confederates are laying out there in their wool uniforms. They are sopping wet. The sun comes back out again on the 5th of July, and it's hot again. And the sun starts working on them. And you know what happens, right? Oh, God, yeah, it was bad. They said that it smelled so bad here in Gettysburg after the battle that you could smell this town as far away as the town of York. That is 30 miles away from here. Imagine how bad it was for the people here. They also said that the fences were so covered with flies, you couldn't even see the wood. It was one big moving mass of bugs. The people in town, they were afraid. They thought there was going to be some sort of a plague that was going to come through and kill everybody. Well, they sent a guy named Dr. Weaver up to the government to get some help. And the government does what the government normally does. They said, "Well, we're not going to do anything about it, but hey, how about you guys? And if you do, make sure you mark on a map where you buried them so we can find them later if we need to. And if you do that for us, we will pay you per head." Well, he came back home and he gave everybody the bad news. The men, the women, the children, they all pitched in. And they finally get it all done. And then Dr. Weaver goes back to the government with all the paperwork, and they're looking it over, and they're going, okay. Whoa, this is way more than we thought. What we say we're going to pay you guys? What do you say instead we pay you? Nothing. And the townspeople went, "Oh, really? Well, what do you say instead we don't tell you where we buried anybody?" And they destroyed all of the records of where they buried all the Confederates. They estimate that there are 1,400 unaccounted for Confederate burials all around town. And they buried them when they fell, guys. You could be standing on them right now. Now, we do find them occasionally. There could be one underneath room 105, by the way. Now, we do find them occasionally. Now, if you guys go down to Baltimore Street, there's a place called Mr. G's Ice Cream, right? Now, right behind that, there is a school. That school was put in 1962. When they first opened that school up, they had some issues. Now, it wasn't that bad. It was people usually would come out in the hallway after class, and all of the lockers would all be open. Well, you'd go to your locker, get your books, close the locker, go to class. When you came back out again after class, they're all open again. But it's Gettysburg. We're kind of used to that stuff here. Now, that football field they put in right next to that 2 years later, they were out there with a bulldozer, and they're going back and forth, leveling out the field. All of a sudden, in the middle of the field, the bulldozer stalled out. Now, they could turn it back on and back it up, but for some reason, every time they try to go over that one particular spot, it would stall out again. They got sick of that. They pulled up the shovels and the rakes, and they started doing that portion by hand. Very soon after they started that, they had to call in an archaeologist because they started to hit bodies. Very soon after the archaeologists got there, they had to call in the Daughters of the Confederacy because it turns out they hit a mass grave of 16 Confederate soldiers right in the center of that football field. Now, they were able to identify where they were from. They were from Louisiana. They could identify them by the buttons and the belt buckles that were buried with them. Now, the archaeologists put each one of those boys into a separate box. The Daughters of the Confederacy came up behind, and they reverently put a Confederate flag over each one. And then they shipped them back down south, and they buried them in the state cemetery with honors as the unknown dead from the Battle of Gettysburg. As soon as they did that, all of the activity in that school stopped, and it never happened again.
They were in unrest.
So what they think is the reason why most of the activity in town here is associated with those Confederates is because of those 1,400 unaccounted for burials all around town. They were never given a proper burial. Once they got a proper burial, all the activity stops. So eventually they may find them all. And when they do, I'll probably be out of a job. Come on.
I feel like those particular soldiers were at unrest because of the way they died and weren't buried properly. Just stuffed in trenches. Makes sense.
This used to be the gingerbread man. Right here.
Hi.
All right, if anybody wants to take a seat on that bench, please do.
Okay. I think I'm gonna sit.
All right, also guys, please be aware, don't block the door right there. That's the only thing I ask.
Thank you. Yep.
You can go in and have a drink though. They'll be happy to have that.
Well, yeah. All right, guys. Now, right here, this is Gettysburg Eddie's. And this is named after a big baseball star at the turn of the 20th century named Eddie Plank. And he was really good. He was actually the first left-handed pitcher in the major leagues to win 300 games. He's actually in the Hall of Fame. And he was a big town hero. Well, when he came back home after he got retired from baseball, he came back a big hero, but he just wanted to be a normal guy. He got a place down in the square. He lived upstairs, and downstairs he had a garage where he worked on the cars and the motorcycles from the time period. Well, fast forward to modern day. There was a father and son that got an apartment downtown, and the little boy kept saying to his dad, "Dad, there's some guy here to see you." Well, the father's going, "Oh, there's nobody here. What are you talking about?" Well, anyway, the boy kept insisting, and the father just ends up saying, "Okay, I just got a weird son." Well, one day they were down here having lunch, and the little boy looked up and he goes, "Dad, that's the guy." Now, a little bit of research later, and it turns out they are actually living in Eddie Plank's house. Now, there's no way the boy would have known that. The father actually had to look that up. Now, there is some activity inside there. It's kind of associated with the bar. Stuff gets knocked off of it. But we're not sure if that has anything to do with any spirits flying around in there or the spirits that people are drinking. Now, I've always been a big believer that kids are really open to seeing ghosts. They're not jaded like us adults are. Now, this next story really backs up that idea, but it's not a Gettysburg story. It's a Maine story. But it happened to me and my son, so if you'll just kind of indulge me a little bit. I was back in Portland, Maine. That's on the coast because it's Portland. And I'm going up the stairs, and my son was in his room. Now, at the time, he was 3 years old. He just turned 30. And I'm going up the stairs, and I can hear him talking in his room. Now, I can't hear what he's saying because the door's shut, but he's having a full-on conversation. And it was kind of like a telephone call. He talked, and he stopped. He talked, and he stopped. And that went on for like a half an hour, which is pretty good for the attention span of a 3-year-old. Well, when he was done, I went in, and I said, "Ben, who are you talking to?" And he said, "My grandfather." And I went, "My daddy and mom's dad," which was kind of snarky because they were both alive at the time. And he goes, "No, the older one, the one that made sails." And he wanted to teach me how to make sails. So then my 3-year-old, in the language of a 3-year-old, commenced to tell me in pretty vivid detail how they made sails back in the 1800s. Right down to the fact that he said, and he wore this funny thing on his hand that he said he needed to use to push the big needles through the cloth. Well, if you know anything about sail making back then, the canvas they used on those big old sailing ships was very thick and heavy-duty canvas. The needles that they used to work it were about that long and very heavy gauge. You could not push those needles through that canvas with your thumb, no matter how hard you tried. They actually wore a leather thing on their hand and around their wrist with a metal cup embedded in the palm, and they would push the needles with their palm. Now, I thought I was pretty good at history. I tried to figure out what he was talking about, and I looked it up based on his description, and he nailed it. There is no way a 3-year-old would know that kind of detail about sail-making equipment from back in the 1800s. So I'm a big believer in that stuff. Now, he's supposed to be coming down here for a visit soon, and when he does, I'm going to embarrass the crap out of him, because that's what dads do. That's our job.
I keep seeing a light in the cemetery.
Yeah, it's those two cars that go up the hill over there. I've seen a bunch of them on ladders, like lights going through the trees.
Yeah, no, this was like on the ground.
All right, if you guys want to take a seat on those benches, please do. All right, guys, now this building kind of looks like the first place we looked at, and there's a good reason for that. This building was also built by the Reverend Dobbin. In the late 1700s, he owned all the property out here. And he built this for the guys that used to work for him. Now it's an old-timey photo studio. I mean, you guys, if you want to go in there, you can all get in there dressed up like me, and you can go home and say, hey, this is Aunt Jane and Uncle Bud from the Civil War. This is where you get that done. And when you have a place like that, you're going to have all kinds of stuff in there. You're going to have uniforms, you're going to have dresses, civilian clothes, hats, canes, swords, guns, you name it, it's all in there. And when you have all that stuff, you're going to have people wanting to look into your windows. Now, a few years ago, a woman looked in that window right there, and she saw what she thought was some sort of a display. Now, what she saw was a man laying on a table with a sheet over him, two men standing guard behind. And she thinks, whoa, that's pretty cool. Well, she came in the next day and she goes, hey, I want my picture done. I want it next to that neat display. Where's the display? The guy said, we've never had a display here. What are you talking about? So she's told him what she saw. She also said that she saw a fire going in the fireplace in there. And then she said, I thought this was weird because you were closed, but the window on the end of the building was open and the wind was blowing the curtains in. Well, there is a fireplace in there, but it hasn't worked in years. It's literally boarded up right now. There is a window on the end of the building, but she couldn't have seen it from that window. Heck, she couldn't have seen it standing right inside, right in front of it, because that's where they used to have their backdrop to the photo stuff. So what she was seeing was probably a ghostly image from back in time.
Wow.
And what it was probably the body of General John Reynolds. Now, General Reynolds was the highest ranking soldier that was killed here during the battle. Now, back to the movie Gettysburg. You guys know Sam Elliott? Everybody knows Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's playing a guy named General Buford, a Union cavalry commander, the first guy on the field here. And he is fighting the Rebs off all by himself. He's doing great, but he's getting overwhelmed. And the whole beginning of the movie, he's like going, where's Reynolds? Where's Reynolds? Well, General Reynolds was the head of the Iron Brigade, the first infantry to show up here. And he gets here in the nick of time. He runs his men up on Seminary Ridge. They stop the Confederates cold. But it's a desperate situation. There's more Rebs coming all the time. He turns to his men for reinforcements. And as he goes, for God's sakes, forward! He gets shot right in the back of the head by a Confederate sharpshooter and killed instantly. His men are horrified. They love this guy. Well, they brought his body here. Now, why here? It's kind of in the middle of everything, right? Well, back during the battle, this was just a stone building sitting out all by itself in the middle of a big open field. It was also the closest building to where he was shot. Also a stone building. They figured it would survive the battle really well. Well, anyway, after the battle was over, they come back in here and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with the guy. And then they said, hey, why don't we just all bring him home personally with our own honor guard, because he's kind of a local boy. He's from Lancaster, about 2 hours away from here. Well, anyway, they are in there and they're washing him down. They don't want to send him home all bloody and muddy and everything. And as they're washing him down, at one point, one of them takes a ring off of his finger and they're washing his hand. The guy holding the ring, he looks at it and he goes, hey, there's an inscription inside the ring. It says, dearest Kate. Who's Kate? Now, they knew he wasn't married. They didn't even know he had a girlfriend. They went, well, put the ring back on. We'll make sure we tell the family to tell Kate. Obviously, she's important. Well, when they got him back home, nobody in the family had any idea who this Kate was. Now, they had the wake right at the house. That's what they used to do back then. They just laid you out in the parlor. People came by to pay their respects. And on the third day of the wake, there's a knock on the door. Standing in the doorway is a beautiful woman with a ring from him. Her name was Catherine. There's your Kate. It turns out that they were secretly engaged before he left for the war. Secretly because she was Catholic and he was Protestant. Big no-no back then. Now, the plan was that after the war was over, they were going to go out west, get married. Nobody out there was going to care what religion they were. And they were going to have lots of babies and be happy. But it didn't work out that way. Now, the last thing she said as he started to ride off at the beginning of the war was, and if you get killed in the war, I promise I will never get married. Now, a lot of women said that back then, and they all meant it at the time. But then when it really happens, reality kind of sets in. And even though they love the guy, they don't want to be alone for the rest of their life, so they reluctantly move on. Not Catherine. She meant business. She actually joined a convent. And she was so intent on keeping that promise that she was there for 35 years and never took her vows to become a nun. Because if you take your vows to become a nun, technically you're marrying God. They actually wear a wedding ring. She wouldn't even do that. That woman lived to be 85 years old, was alone for the rest of her life.
Wow.
So she obviously loved that guy very much. Now, we get stuff happening in here all the time. We do ghost investigations in here periodically. And one of the things that happened recently, if you guys ever watch those TV shows?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll have like one of those.
Yes.
You ever see those when they have the videos and they have the little stick figure guy that pops up?
Yes.
Anomalies.
Oh, yeah, well, they
Yeah.
got one in there. And it was very, very responsive. In fact,
what's
at one
the name of
point,
those
one of the
darn
hunters
things?
put their
Stru-
hand out,
light
and they were on the
structured
monitor, and
sensor.
they're asking this thing to touch their hand.
Camera.
Every time they asked, the thing went. I mean, it's really cool. We also get the sound of footsteps upstairs. Drawers will open and close. They will actually see shadow figures. Got a question? Oh. Anyway, we're getting all kinds of shadow figures. They'll get phantom smells. And they also get something called EVPs. Now, an EVP is electronic voice phenomena. That's when you make a recording and maybe you'll hear something. Well, I mean, we weren't even asking questions. We just let the thing go. And at one point, we were listening to the audio back over. There was one point where somebody was right next to the microphone whistling "When Johnny Comes Marching Home, Clear as a Bell." So it's obviously a very, very, very active
Chills.
place. All right, guys, can I switch places with you here? All right, now say you guys are going around town and you see an old building and you think to yourself, huh, what if that building was here during the battle? Well, right there, although not 100%. Guys, out of the road, please. In the 1930s, there was a fundraiser, and they said if you had a house that was here for during the battle, give us some money, and we will give you this awesome plaque that you can put on the side of your house, and you can prove how much cooler you are than your neighbor because you have a plaque and they don't. Now remember, this was during the 1930s, during the Depression. A lot of the people that lived in the older houses in town that were here from the battle were also occupied by the poorer people in town. And at that point, they were having a hard time even putting food on the table, let alone having money set aside to put a hunk of metal on the side of their house. So even though they had a house for the battle, they didn't get one. Also, turns out apparently this was a very popular fundraiser, and I guess it didn't matter because if you gave them the money, you got a plaque. Now, most of those people were really cool about it. They gave them to the churches, they gave them to the municipal buildings, they gave them to the people that couldn't afford it. Some of them put them on the side of their house. There was no law against it. There were only about 1,200 buildings in total in town here during the battle.
Wow.
There are 1,237 of these out there. Now, there are also joke ones out there, and those say, nothing happened July 1863, so keep your eyes open for those. Now, as a matter of fact, if you look over there at that Mexican restaurant, you see the plaque? Yeah, that's one of those fake ones.
Oh, so it says nothing happened here on July whatever.
Yeah. But there is one house in town that actually has a real plaque that says, you know, July 1863, and then it has nothing happened here. So I don't know why. I
That's
guess,
funny.
You know, it was here, but nothing happened.
It was here, but nothing happened. Was it
I'm
used
very
as a
confused
field
when I saw
hospital?
I'm like, what is it? Which one is it?
Remember all those smells we were getting here last time we were here?
Oh God, yeah. Well, this one's kind of hard because this one actually has a scented candle, so it's kind of.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was over behind the orphanage one time, and I was talking about phantom smells and about lavender. And it was the middle of winter, and there was no wind, dead calm. And I said the word lavender, and the smell of lavender came over the entire
Well,
room.
didn't they use
And I
that
mean
back
strong. Huh?
then? Didn't they use that back then?
Oh yeah, they used to put it
Like
in the napkin.
lavender
Oil.
and vanilla.
Because they would put it over their mouth.
Yeah,
Because the
stench.
smell was so bad.
I love lavender. Oh, it smells
I love-
so
Talking
pretty.
about the smell of like Pennsylvania, because this like smells like a
No,
specific
no.
Oh, not that
Gettysburg
smell.
was
Not the
so
downward tile
steep
smell, no,
in
not that.
blood at the time that it's still, you can still smell it to this very day. Because when we were down here last time, me and my aunt,
Yeah.
we definitely smelled a crap ton load of stuff.
And I love the smell of horse sweat. That is the best smell, horse sweat.
You're weird.
I love it.
Well, you're a farm girl, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. Now, this next story, this is not a ghost story. I just love this story. In 1913, they had the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and they had 50,000 veterans of the battle that came back to celebrate it. And they all look like this old guy right here. Now, remember when I said there weren't that many buildings in town here during the battle?
Yeah.
So where are you going to put 50,000 old guys? Well, the military came in with an answer, and they built this huge tent city. This is where the front gate was, right here. And it went all the way back that way, all the way back that way, all the way back that way. And it was all made out of that old OD green, heavy, oily canvas tents to keep the rain out really well. But it wasn't raining, it was July, it was hot, and these tents are super hot. But they don't mind. I mean, they were sweating their buns off, but they're having a ball. They're talking to all their old buddies, and they're going, hey, remember when I shot that rib up there? And then they actually had the first reenactment of Pickett's Charge with the original cast members. Now, the Union guys are up on top of the hill. The Confederates, thank God they didn't start them all the way over on Confederate Avenue. I mean, look at them, right? No, they started them right down here on Emmitsburg Pike. And they're all lined up at the bottom of the hill wearing their Confederate gray veteran uniforms. And they start off with a big old guy rebel yell, woo! And then they go, we're gonna get you this time. Well, the Union guys are up on top of the hill. They're looking down and they see this line of gray coming back up that hill just as it was 50 years before, almost to the minute. And it was a pretty emotional moment for them. A lot of them started crying. And then, as if on cue, nobody talked to each other. They abandoned their position on top of the hill. They went down and they met the Confederates up halfway up, and they embraced them as brothers. Now, we have a lot of politics going on right now, and everybody is at each other's throats. But 50 years ago, almost to the second, these guys were trying as hard as they could to kill each other, and now here they are hugging each other like the best friends ever. If we can get past that here in America, we can get past anything, and that's why I like this story. All right, back to the ghost.
Cheers to that.
Oh, yeah. It was.
More love, less hate.
That's right. You said it, Anjuana. Oh, sorry.
All right, is anybody staying in this place here?
Uh-uh.
Okay, same reason. Okay, now I don't know if you guys know it or not, but every spring, okay, not last spring, but every other spring, we have thousands of school kids that come here for their school trips. And they're coming back, thank God. Well, anyway, we'll have buses and tour buses all lined up out here. Now, sometimes we actually have to start this tour here. And the reason for that is because we had 8 busloads of 13-year-old girls out back. And we had all of our tour guides all lined up. I had my group of 25 of them right here. And they're all doing what 13-year-old girls do. They're all on their phones, right? And I'm sitting there going, oh God, this isn't gonna go well. They're not paying attention. So to make the best of it, I went, hey, it's great you guys all have your phones out. Make sure you take pictures. We get stuff all the time. And then it's kind of a lame joke. I went, but not over there. That's a newer hotel. You won't get nothing over there. And then I heard a squeal behind me. I turn around and now there's a clump of 13-year-old girls. The one in the center is holding her phone up like this. I go over and I look, and on her phone is the best full body apparition photo I have ever seen anywhere ever, bar none. It was amazing. There was a woman in a brown dress, darker brown stripes going down it. So clear I could actually see little roses going down the darker stripes. And she's walking, and it looks like she's reading a big book as she's walking. And I mean, she was as real as any of you guys. In fact, so real I could think right at first that maybe she was a reenactor, except my hand is in the picture. Here I am going, nobody over there, don't look over there, and right next to my hand is that woman.
That's what I'm
Now
trying to
this is the holy grail of ghost hunting. People go their whole career
yeah.
just to get like a little picture
Big
of a little
time.
orb. This is the best you can get. And I just started working here and I'm freaking out. I mean, I gotta get a copy of this, right? And I started begging her to send it to me. And then I stopped myself. Because I realized I was asking a 13-year-old girl to send me pictures over the internet. So yeah, of course I didn't get the darn thing.
Oh no.
Now another thing that happened over there is that there was a couple staying over there, and they were here to celebrate their anniversary. And they were in here having a few drinks. Okay, they were having a lot of drinks, but I mean, it's okay. It was their anniversary. They were across the street.
Sure.
Well, anyway, when they get done, the husband comes out with his key card. And he starts going up and trying to get it. I mean, I have a hard time using those things, even if I haven't had a few drinks, right? And he does that for a while, and then he goes to plan B. He starts shaking the door, because obviously that's going to work, right? Well, it does. On the third shake, the door opens up. Standing in the doorway is a beautiful woman in full Civil War regalia. The couple look at her, and they go, "Ah!" The woman in the doorway, she starts laughing. Because she's a reenactor. Now the next day she goes downstairs to check out. She goes and talks to the guy at the front desk. They go over the whole thing and they're having a good laugh over it. Well, she leaves, but he knows who she's talking about, and he decides that he is going to mess with them when they come down to check out. Well, they come down and he goes, anything weird happened last night? And the couple go, "Oh my God, yeah." And they start telling the story. And they get to the point where they saw the woman and the guy stops them. And he goes, "So she really scared you good, huh?" And the guy went, No, not the reenactor, lady. It was the bloody Confederates standing behind her. What? So I will never go. Don't look over there. It's new, because we have stuff happening all the time here. If you look down there, you see those streetlights and that fence. That is the boundary for the National Battlefield Park.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
after the war was over, those guys didn't care what the future boundary for the National Battlefield Park was going to be.
Yep, goosebumps.
The Union had their line all drawn up behind here. The Confederates came right through here. We're on the battlefield, guys. So the idea of having a dead Confederate up there is not as weird as you think.
Told you Gettysburg's haunted from
100%.
block to block.
100%.
We actually had our very first paranormal experience here.
Really?
Not here in the well, yeah, here, but it was real profound at Devil's Den.
Really?
And me and my aunt, we were talking in the car, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we hear musket fire, either musket fire or cannon fire, and I'm like, "Oh, did you hear that?" I was so excited.
Yeah. So like as a kid, so I'm like, I'm old, right? Like, you know.
I'm 41.
Yeah. So not too far.
All right, now anytime you guys go on one of these tours, eventually the tour guide is going to say, "Don't be afraid to ask any questions. There are no stupid questions. The only stupid question is the one that isn't asked," right? You've heard that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to tell you guys, there are some stupid questions. Twice on my tour, I've had adults look me straight in the eye, serious as a heart attack, go, "Did the people hide behind the statues to protect themselves during the battle?"
Oh, no.
Another one I got was, "Hey, why are there no bullet holes in these statues?" And the third question I got last fall, and I guess I'm the statue question guy, they said, "What do they do with the statues in the wintertime? Like they box them up and put them away or something." Now I was kind of ready for that one. I came back and I said, "Well, we put mittens and scarves on," which was kind of snarky. I probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh.
Now,
Well, you are from Boston, or
well, I'm from Maine, yeah.
Maine, yeah.
We would do, yeah.
Boston, Maine.
Now, anyway.
You're from New England.
Now, I have a guy that I work with. He's been doing these tours for about 30 years. He said that the worst question that he ever got in all that time was, why do they always have these battles on national park grounds?
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
now he's wittier than I am. He came right back and he goes, "Well, man, because they had the better maps." And she goes, "Oh, well, that makes sense. So, yeah, it's always best to slam them and they don't even know that you did it." I'll get that good eventually.
I got a question.
So,
Yeah.
Do they have any Confederate monuments here, or is it just?
10 of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they're all on the, most of them are all on
Definitely,
There's
yeah.
like the states that are all
Yeah,
there.
and you should check Confederate Avenue out. It's really beautiful, actually. It's all this, woods covered, and it's got cannons all lining, and there's a stone wall there. And there's a lot of Confederate.
We were just there.
Yeah, oh God,
We were just there. Me and my aunt and uncle, yeah, before the ghost tour.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Monument here.
Yeah, the Robert E. the Virginia
Oh,
one.
so when I was a kid, I used to come here. So I lived like an hour, 15 minutes north of
Okay,
growing up.
okay.
So like, this is like my day trip. with my
$179 for
parents,
regular?
like, to
Oh,
bring me down
nice,
here.
nice.
We have Polaroids from the 80s and 90s, and it's just orbs.
Dang, I bet. Now,
All the
you
time.
really have to be careful with orbs because they can be anything.
Right, but it's Polaroids in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
of the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
So it's like, even like my mom was like, like you know,
Yep,
like, and I
yep,
did,
yep,
like,
yep,
and now
yep.
me and my mom are like big into the ghost shit, like, cause like,
Same with me and my
we've
aunt
had
and uncle.
experiences through houses that we've
My
lived in.
my mom had experiences in a house that she lived in, and I'm telling you,
Stuff, weird stuff that like my mom and my dad too, and these like weird like it's like us like family pictures like middle of the day in Gettysburg, and there's like
an orb. Yep.
and it's just bizarre, like it's just weird stuff, and then they're like, yep, that's our family photos.
Like there's a second family member or something.
And now I live in Virginia, right
Okay,
outside of
okay.
Leesburg.
Yeah.
And
I've
so,
heard of
like,
Leesburg,
super Civil
Virginia.
War, Revolutionary War, but the opposite side.
Yeah, I just started filming on YouTube about 4 months ago,
Oh,
so I'm fairly new, so I'm trying to get it down.
awesome. Yeah.
But it's not like big, like I'm not big, you know.
You're doing it for yourself. Like,
Yeah, I'm
is that
doing
not-
it
yeah.
to show
That's
because
like,
I do
buy
it.
like these books like wherever I go, like
Yeah,
those books
yep,
that
yep, I do too.
yeah,
And I'll tell you what, I do it through the eyes of me.
yeah.
What I'm
Right, like,
seeing in
like,
that moment.
Not a fan, but like you're just interested by the whole thing, and like yeah.
Right.
So it's you, yeah.
This is where I got those orbs the last time I was here. Yeah.
I'll show you my Charleston photos. It's fucking easy. Okay.
I used to go up to like Halifax and stuff like that. Oh,
nice.
Oh, well, from Maine.
Maine, right? You're
Right next to it. So anyway, hey guys, this is the annex to the National Home. I mean, this is the annex to the National Cemetery. Behind the stone wall back there, that is the National Cemetery, and that's where they buried all the Union soldiers that died during the battle. Now, after the war was over, there were a lot of people that wanted to be buried on this hallowed ground, but there was no place to bury them. So they actually petitioned the United States government to purchase this property here. And it took them quite a while to get that done. Not until 1968. And they have guys in there who are veterans of the Spanish-American War all the way up to Iraq. And it's completely full. I mean, there's no more room in there. Now, if you look over there and you can't see any gravestones over there because they are all flush with the ground. But I gotta tell you, every Memorial Day that's coming right up, there's a sea of American flags out there. Now, the thing that happens out here is usually when somebody has a very expensive camera. Now, the first time this happened, this guy had a Nikon camera. He had like the shoulder braces, the hand things, and the whole tour he's like going click, 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 click. It was kind of annoying, right? And he gets up here and he goes click, 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 click. He could not get his camera to take a picture of that cemetery no matter how hard he tried. Now, at first I thought, okay, he's just got a problem with his camera. But it has happened 12 more times on the tour, and it is only when people have expensive cameras. I mean, one guy was actually doing a news story on us, and he actually was a professional, newspaper photographer, and he couldn't get his camera to work on that cemetery. Now, people get pictures with their cell phones all the time. Now, one time a person took a picture of that monument and that tree about sundown. And I was standing in front of the office, and the next day she comes running up to me and she goes, "Oh my God, look at this picture." And I went, "Yeah, nice picture of the monument and the tree." And she goes, "No, zoom in." And I zoomed in. You could see a woman in a black dress with a black veil over her head walking through the cemetery in there. We also had another picture where somebody took a picture over that wall, and you could see a woman with a skeletal face in a black dress looking over the wall right there. Not long ago, we had a school group here, and this was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. You know those Apple phones where they have like you get like a picture and a couple seconds of video with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, vibe.
Yeah, okay. Well, they took a picture over there next to the fence. And when I'm back at the office after, she comes up and she goes, "Hey, is this anything?" And I look at it, and you could see a pair of legs walking by the fence. Now, when I say a pair of legs, it was a pair of legs. There was no upper body. I mean, it was clear as a ballad, but you could see the legs walking by the fence and no upper body right by the fence. I mean, it was the clearest thing I've ever seen. And I told her, I said, "Boy, you got to post this. This is going to go viral. This is one of the best things I've ever seen." But she didn't do it. Anyway. Now, the story that they tell us to tell people about that place is that people will be out here at night and they will see shadow figures coming out of the National Cemetery and slowly walking across the annex and heading in that direction. And the theory behind that is they actually think that those are the ghosts of Confederate soldiers that were accidentally buried up in the unknown section up there, and they think that they're trying to get back to their own lines. And there's actually some history behind that. They estimate that there's at least 9 Confederates that they did accidentally bury up there. Now, not long ago, I had a group of 25 people just like this, and I was up here, and I had just told that story. We start walking down the sidewalk. All of a sudden, the lady in the back, she goes, "Hey, look." And we looked over in the cemetery. Now, the cemetery was super dark that night, even darker than that. It was very misty, very foggy in there. You couldn't see hardly anything in there. What we did see was 2 lanterns coming out of the National Cemetery and going across like this.
Oh.
Now,
I just
you
seen
couldn't
that.
see anybody carrying them. All you could see were the lanterns
weird
going
photos
like
and
this. And of course, everybody's freaking out, right? They think it's a ghost. I think
What
it's probably
the-
somebody
Yeah.
in there.
Right?
Now, anyway.
And normal.
So anyway, we checked that out, and we're
Oh,
walking down the
what?
sidewalk, and they pulled down, and they're right next to those trees, right on the other side there, and we're watching. We're yelling
What
over. Nobody's
post that?
answering. So anyway, we're
I'll send
watching,
it to you. You want me to
watching.
send it to
All of a
you?
sudden,
Yeah,
boom!
yeah.
They both went
Yeah.
out at the same time, and nobody came out. There's no way all 25 of us would have
Like, that's
missed it.
just
So those may
Look
have
at
been
that.
those shadow figures that
What
we were
the-
told about, and we were lucky
That
enough to be
looks
able to
like,
see that
um,
on the tour. Now I wish I could make that happen on every tour, but I probably
what
have
the
to
hell
try
is
it.
going on there?
I don't
Can
know.
I show you this?
Oh, that streak?
And the
What the heck?
mist and whatnot.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. You sure that's not a thumb?
I don't know because I hear next photo.
Oh, you still got it.
And she has the Pro Max, same as me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting that from my YouTube video.
That's next level, Katie.
That's
That
crazy.
is next level. There you go.
That happened to me.
Took 3 rapid photos.
And she had her.
I think that's from the
She had her flash off too.
I think it's from that street.
Because you could see like things. I'm getting this. Ow. I just feel like there's people like in there.
I feel like I'm being watched.
Uh-huh. Me too. Me too. Me friggin' too. No, I'm feeling the same exact way. Why do you think I have my friggin' camera focused this way the whole entire walk down here? It's not. Oh my gosh, that's running flash.
That's freaking garbage.
Oh,
God.
I didn't even see that there. I feel like I'm being watched. Like, literally.
And I was trying to copy that, but then I actually was trying to get the cheese curds from Quebec, but I couldn't get it.
I don't know.
Actually, I had to get it from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But I did it the right way. I had like French Canadian girls like singing in French a poutine song, which I didn't even know existed, but they were pretty drunk. But they go, nobody makes poutine like they do at home. And when they had it, they were like, oh my God, it's like home. And they started singing. All right, guys. Now remember when I said that there are no standing gravestones in that cemetery? So what the heck are those 2 things right there?
Yeah.
Those are called flank markers. Now the one on the right is actually linked up with that monument up there. During the battle, that unit lined up between those 2 points. The one on the left is linked up with that monument there. During the battle, they lined up between those 2 points. We are looking at the extreme right of the Union line during Pickett's charge. Now, the Confederate infantry never came anywhere near down here, but right across the way on Confederate Avenue, they had cannon over there, and they're lobbing cannonballs in here. Now, the biggest surprise that I had when I was a little kid and I first started coming here was how actually in the town the fighting actually was. Basically, the only part of town where there wasn't any fighting was about from where Tommy's Pizza is down to about where our office is. And the rest of the town, there was fighting all over it.
We're staying at the Cavalier House.
Oh, God, the cat? I stayed there. There's a cat there. Ghost cat. Oh, I knew it.
Cat toys everywhere.
What?
Tommy's Pizza.
Oh.
He was showing up there.
Oh, Tommy's Pizza.
I'll tell you a story. All right, guys. Where they going? All right, guys, I want to thank you all very much for coming out with me tonight. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the tour, if you could please go on TripAdvisor and the Gettysburg Ghost Tours and say, hey, Major Finn did a good job on that tour. That would be great. My boss loves that. If you didn't like me on the tour, though, my name is Frank. Also, just so you know, the bulk of my pay comes from your generosity. If you feel that is appropriate, that would be great. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your time here in Gettysburg. Have a safe trip home. And I hope I see you guys all here again soon. Thank you all very much.
Woo!
Hey.
You gotta give him some money.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
He goes, I bet his daughter wasn't even a good cook. And the chain.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, just smash that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and I will be posting this shortly.